Hello and welcome back once again to Belmont Bunch. Today, we're talking about the first round. We're kind of recapping the first round and what I thought of each series. I'm wearing the jersey of a non-playoff team, so I don't know. It's just one of my favorite
I'm wearing
jerseys.
the shirt of a college football team. I'm here too. All right, so
We're going to run through each series, and in the background, we have ESPN's predictions through the first round because I needed a laugh.
yeah, let's go. Why don't we start with the very first prediction they made, Tom? Pittsburgh versus the New York Islanders.
It's a good one to start at since I've talked about it so much on the recap videos. So I don't know, maybe do you want to kind of lead off?
Yeah, okay. So I mean, just based on what they said, they had 10 out of their 16 people chose the Pittsburgh to win. No surprise there. I mean, I think a lot of people. I mean, I think you even chose Pittsburgh. Actually, I have your predictions up here as well.
I did. So. I picked Pittsburgh. Yeah. I'll get into it. But
so I'm just pulled up a picture of your bracket. So over here on the right, we have Tom picked Pittsburgh winning. I don't remember how many games you said, but
I had Pittsburgh in 7, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. So it could have been that.
Yeah.
And and obviously I think a lot of people were surprised, Islanders fans included. I don't know. Do you want to go into details about? Because I could talk more about the Islander games because I watched all of them. You know, I didn't watch too many of the other games though.
Yeah. I guess just generally, I'll do some quick thoughts. That 10 out of 16 number from ESPN, I actually think that's pretty fair. You know, there were plenty of people in that group that. I think if you went solely based off of the numbers of like the regular season, meetups and that makes it sound like they were just hanging out. The regular season games and some, just like how they were playing going into the playoffs. A lot of like your common knowledge would be the Penguins, but given the context of how the Islanders over the last 3 years have been such a difficult team to play in the playoffs, everybody here had it going 6 or 7, which is kind of incredible. So everybody thought this would be a battle. Yeah. And at least, I think most people felt that it was going to be, very tightly contested. The interesting thing to me was, and I don't think people would have thought this would happen, that there were a few high-scoring games in this series. I think you would have thought it would be a close defensive affair. Obviously with the Islanders involved, but even the Penguins had a great year from their goaltenders. Not a good playoff series. I talked about I think the last recap in Game 6, how Penguin fans probably shouldn't put it all on Jarry, and I stick by that. But I did that video immediately as I got home from the game, and then I got to see a little bit more. Got to break down a few of the goals a little bit more. And Jarry was he was terrible. He was really bad.
What were they going to do in the second round though? You know what I mean?
Well, I think Boston
abuse Jarry.
So their backup is Casey DeSmith, and he had a pretty good year himself, and he wasn't available because of injury.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure he would have gotten a shot at some point in that series.
So was he still injured then during the series, or
he didn't even
was on track to play for round 2, or
who knows? Yeah. With the way that they, the secrecy around these injuries. Yeah. But so their backup was Maxime Legacy, who has a little bit of NHL experience, but not much. I think his only NHL experience was the year that Vegas came into the league. They had like 1 billion goalie injuries, and he actually got to play against the Islanders.
Wow!
In a game that I think the Islanders won. But
I thought you were going to say the Islanders gave him his first shutout or something like that.
No, you would think. I think the general consensus was afterwards, the Penguins would have won if it wasn't for their goalie. But first of all, the goalie's part of your team. And second of all, getting to watch some more, replays after the game. Sidney Crosby got beat twice defensively. And, you can't win a series. Like they did. I have to give to Penguins fans that the team in the offensive zone was very pretty and very impressive, but they were not strong enough in their defensive zone. And obviously their goaltending was a part of it. But like, their GM today was like, we deserved to win. You don't you don't get what you contrary to what the Joker would say. You don't always get what you deserve. And on top of that, if the only mistakes you make are gigantic ones, and the other team cashes in, you're gonna lose.
What a cringy thing to say. Oh man, that's like kind of like toddler level temper tantrum. Like, we deserve to win. It's like, well, you didn't. And obviously, yeah, like there are extenuating, like you had an injury. It's like every team has injuries at this point,
Oh yeah.
So
yeah. But I saw a lot of people like, if not for Sorokin, yes, if not for the guy on our team who was an excellent regular season goalie and then turned out to go 4 for 4 in the Penguin series.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I wonder if that's like an attitude that some people have, where it's like they'll think because Sorokin has been this long-awaited prospect and like touted as the best goalie in the KHL and stuff, like because of that they think like now if he comes into the team and adds this amazing goaltending to our already pretty great goaltending, like they'll think it's illegitimate because it's like, well, they brought in a ringer, like that kind of attitude.
Yeah, but, I mean, it maybe there'd be more to that if he came over mid-season, but like, the whole season. Yeah,
that's true.
And Pittsburgh, the only time this year I think that Sorokin got pulled mid-game in the regular season was against Pittsburgh. So they were able to get to him in the regular season, just not in the playoffs. And Toronto will tell you could dominate a game and not win it 3 times in a row. But we'll get to that. But
okay.
Anyway, what about your thoughts?
Well, the main thoughts I had were just about the scoring for us, and like you said, a lot of the goals for us. I should be more specific. A lot of goals for the Islanders were not necessarily pretty. They were like cashing in on mistakes, like you said. But I mean, the second line, all 3 members of the second line had 3 goals in the series, which is pretty solid. Crazy. And then plus Palmieri had 3 goals.
Yeah.
Like that's so. Like everybody jokes about, I guess, the second line heating up during the playoffs and stuff, but it's just true. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And they've had to, because the first line hasn't done anything.
Yes, and that was the other thing I wanted to mention.
Like
Eberle had 2 goals in the series, and then, so did Eberle score in the Boston game?
No, he hasn't scored yet in the Boston series, I don't think.
So I don't know. Hopefully that happens, because as much as like it's fun to see Matt Barzal skate around in the zone, and he hasn't even been doing that as much.
A little bit better last game. A little bit better. That line, at least because they've been pretty much completely neutralized in the playoffs so far. But like you said, the middle 6 is kind of doing the scoring.
100%. Yeah.
Thank God that
now the fourth line is rolling. I mean, Casey Cizikas had. I mean, now we're getting into the second round, I suppose. But Casey Cizikas was, scored the game-winning goal on a lucky turnover, but still.
Yeah. No, definitely fortunate. And the Islanders had a few lucky goals in game 2. And
but see, my theory is, as long as we can capitalize on the other team's mistakes more than we let the other team capitalize on our mistakes, that's like, I feel like that's totally reasonable. As a fan, to cheer it on rather than just being like, oh, it was lucky. It's like, well, you guys had your lucky breaks too, and I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway,
maybe I'm being a sore winner. I don't know. At the moment.
Yeah. But should we move on to Boston and Washington?
Let's move on to Boston and Washington. So the ESPN people said Bruins 14-16. They strongly felt the Bruins were going to win this one.
And
everybody thought it was going to be 6 or 7 games also.
Yeah, I had Boston in 7, so I guess I was very the loop with the experts.
This checks out. You had Boston. You didn't write the number on your.
Oh video. Yeah. I have the numbers written on the little board I have next to me. But so for me, the only shocking thing. Well, first of all, that's a little surprising to see how many people picked Boston, but Boston came into the playoffs on a roll. We saw that doesn't always matter. It depends on the team. The Islanders didn't go in on a roll, and then they played a great a good first round, and they got through. Boston, I was shocked by how easily they dispatched Washington. Washington looked like They had a lot of depth. One of the big reasons for me that I picked Boston was I was worried about Washington. I don't know like how you would describe it, but some weird things going on this year, like behind the scenes, it sounded like, where, they had a lot of COVID stuff. So it didn't sound like they were like adhering to like COVID protocols early on. They had a lot of guys miss games.
That's right. Yeah. Even Ovi, like the first 3 games, 2 or 3 games, the Islanders played the Capitals. Ovi was out. And we lost.
And yeah, it didn't help us much. But I was worried about their goaltending, which proved to be like a worry. It was young. It was inexperienced outside of Craig Anderson. But then he was, Craig Anderson's like 40 years old. So it's pretty tough to ask a 40-year-old goalie to deliver you a series. You kind of got to play excellent in front of him too.
How old is Rask?
Rask is in his 30s. So
I thought he was about 40.
No.
Oh, okay.
But Rask has played really well, and apparently Rask is playing hurt.
Really?
He's still been pretty impressive. So
damn, he has been really impressive.
That shows you how good a goalie he is.
Seriously.
But, for me in this series, Washington's depth throughout the year was pretty good, and Connor Sheary proved to be like a really good piece for them, and so they re-signed him. He had a good, decent playoff series, one of the few. But there's a weird thing the last few years. This team looks disinterested once the playoffs hit, and that's such a weird thing. You would think it'd be the opposite, where the regular season they'd be like, oh, this is a foregone conclusion because they keep getting to the playoffs, and then in the playoffs, they would turn it up. But they've been doing the opposite seemingly the last couple of years. They haven't won a playoff series since Trotz left. So wow. you could look at the coaching. Obviously the players have to buy in. So that, like if you're a player, first of all, you should be just doing your job. Now, granted, the coach could put you in a bad spot and not use you to your best ability. But Washington looked pretty good this year. So I don't really think it was the coaching, but the players just. Maybe there's a shakeup that needs to happen. There's already been talks about Kuznetsov being traded.
I do have this theory, though. This is crazy. I might have mentioned this once before, that in the games, this is just Islander sample size here. So in the games that the Capitals played against the Islanders in the regular season, where Ovechkin was not playing, we lost. I don't think we won a single game. And then I was joking about it earlier, but I think there's something to that. I don't know if there's something where maybe Ovechkin's so... his influence on the team and the players and how they're going to play is so strong, and which maybe not isn't a bad thing, but maybe it makes different play styles difficult. There could be like some different ideas about what might be the best way to play or strategies or something. I don't know enough while watching to see if there's differences between like how they played last year and this year and whatever. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was something like that, where just because he's such a he's the man. So
yeah, I wonder if they're reverting to some old bad habits from before Trotz, because for
even with a new coach.
Well, yeah, and so obviously it was night and day, their coaching from this year and last year. That Peter Laviolette's a really, really good coach, and you could tell because they
almost as good as Barely Trotz. Just saying,
Barely Trotz.
He's barely Trotz.
But you could tell how much better the coaching was, because the reason I picked them to finish 4th in the division was I thought they were a good team that would take a while to get used to a new coaching scheme, but they got right into it. They were one of the best teams in the division like the whole year, so they don't really have the excuse of like, oh, we were learning a new system. Guys, it was working. So maybe if you're going to be really charitable, they just ran into a Boston team that is playing their best hockey of the year at the right time. But I'm not going to be that charitable, and I'm going to say that the Capitals might have a similar problem to the Leafs, which
we'll get into.
Yeah, maybe there's just not enough desire in the room. Maybe you have a few guys that were, they won that 2018 Stanley Cup, and they were like, cool, I don't have to
yeah, right.
I don't know. I've reached the summit.
Yeah.
This is why they talk about how it's so hard to repeat as champions in the NHL. It hasn't happened. It happened the Penguins a few years ago, but it's few and far between. And usually it's talked about as like, oh, it's a physical beating down of how many games you play in a year plus an extra quarter of a season in the playoffs. But for the Capitals, it seems to be more that they've mentally checked out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a harder thing to solve in the offseason. That's like maybe the GM has meetings with some players and they're like, how much do you want to win? Like, seriously, do you want to win anymore? Or are you just playing and getting paid and not interested in like, well, we're out now. Like, so that's where I think they're going to have to focus their offseason efforts.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's such like an impossible thing probably to gauge. You know what I mean? Like that might be something like 10 years after like players retire and stuff. Maybe they'll talk about maybe.
Yeah, well, maybe an experienced GM can read between the lines.
Oh yeah,
because everybody's going to give you everyone's going to give you a good PR answer.
Yeah, right.
They're going to be like, of course I want to win. I've been playing this game since I was however many years old, and look at me last year. Look at this goal I scored. Look how many goals I scored. But I think an experience like Lou Lamoriello probably can see through that and go, "You're full of it," and he'd probably say that based on what you hear about him. But anyway,
one thing I also want to mention is I don't know how much you agree with it. I haven't watched I didn't watch enough of Boston, the Boston Capital series. How much do you think it's Taylor Hall doing great for Boston?
Definitely had a role that he played very well in that series, and having he's for most teams obviously like a first line winger, and the fact that Boston's deep enough that they were like, guess what, we have too many good guys, you're playing the second line. It's a lot less pressure, and I think he's like, first of all, it sounds like he really wanted to be a Boston Bruin first off, and so getting what he wanted in that regard, and then having not all the pressure in the world on him, getting the play on the second line, I think it's been perfect for him, and that's why I think he's going to sign in the offseason back with Boston.
I would be really surprised if he didn't. But
it just seems like it's been a good fit.
So, moving on. Hurricanes and Nashville.
Yes.
So, I personally wasn't very surprised by this.
Yeah.
16 out of 16 ESPN analysts said the Hurricanes would win.
Yeah.
And all of them were like 4, 5, a few 6s, 1 7. Wow, Barry Melrose said 7. So.
Yeah, I had Carolina in 5. Our buddy.
Wait. I can confirm, yes. Okay.
Yeah. Our buddy Isles X Cats listed this as like one of his series that he could see an upset in. And I should have gotten his bracket up too. That would have been funny. Yeah, well, credit to him because like this was definitely, first of all, Nashville was playing with house money, so their fans are probably just proud of them that they got it as far as they did because Carolina is just a better team.
Yeah.
Now, when I did my predictions, I'm pretty sure I said, first of all, I don't like to pick sweeps because they're so hard to achieve, and then second of all, Nashville with UC Saros in goal. He had a game where he made 50 saves. Like he's a real good goalie. He's a short king, which is bonus points. But
not for you. You're like 6'5", right?
Oh yeah. But the reason I said 5 was I think he's going to steal a game. Turns out he kind of stole 2, but stole might be unfair because actually one of those wins that Nashville had, they played. They hung with Carolina way better than I thought they would, even in the games they lost.
This
so
is
if you're a
actually
Nashville fan, yeah.
I was going to say, I didn't even realize going into the postseason they played each other twice, and Nashville won twice going into the playoffs. Like that's actually pretty crazy.
Yeah. But and Sterling mentioned that, and the only reason that I was skeptical of that was I think both of these teams knew that they were going to play each other in the playoffs, so I think they didn't want to show each other much. I think on Carolina's behalf, I don't think they wanted to risk anybody getting hurt. So they might have been playing a little bit more carefully, and they had won the division, so they knew they just had to get into the playoffs healthy. So from their perspective, Carolina, I think it's good that they struggled in the first round. I think they needed that because if they had had a nice easy time through, and already the Tampa Bay series isn't going well for them. They're down 2-0. But Carolina has lost both of those games 2-1.
It's on tonight at 8 p.m.
Yeah. But like Carolina's played well. It's unfortunate that they're down 2-0. But Carolina, it's not rust. That's not the reason they're losing. So I do think it actually helped them to play such a competitive first round series. And I think that Nedeljkovic, it's so cool. I talked about how they have 3 goalies they could play, and they went to the guy that came into the season as the number 3 goalie, and he has become the number 1. And outside of a really, really bad goal he gave up in the first Tampa game,
which ended up mattering.
Yes, which ended up deciding the game.
Yeah.
He played a really good Nashville series. That series was really well goaltended. And for Carolina, I'm happy they got through because, like I said, I'm a sucker for their lineup construction because it's so balanced, and I like seeing that. And I like seeing, balance succeed. And this is a good year so far for balance succeeding. Again, I'll talk about Toronto eventually.
Yeah.
Okay. The 16 out of 16 is not that surprising. And I see a lot of 4s and 5s. So credit to Nashville for doing what they did. Not much more I got.
All right, cool. So Florida and Tampa Bay. This one I felt bad for Sterling about because I pretty much completely agree. Not having seen too much of them play during the regular season, I did what he said for his prediction made sense. People are underestimating the Panthers. Even they are going in as the higher seed, all that stuff, but obviously it didn't happen.
Yeah, I think because the Lightning this year, they're so good that they could first of all, they were missing Kucherov, who's one of the best players in the world. So of course they're going to feel that. But they're such a good team that they could kind of just play very conservatively for the last month of the regular season, slide down the standings to 3 and not worry about it. And I'm sure Panthers fans will say because they knew Kucherov was coming back, because there's some cap trickery being done there, even though it's within the rules. That's more on the NHL for allowing, it was a weird situation. And it is a rare situation that a team could be so good that they could, not sit, because Kucherov had surgery, but, seems like a lot of people think that he's been healthy for a little bit and that they held him out to stay under the cap. But either way, you got to give credit to Kucherov for not playing for a year, even if he was healthy, for not playing for a whole regular season and then just showing up to the first round series and being oh, cool, I'm amazing again. I'm
sure he was probably dying to get on the ice.
Yeah. And from from Tampa's perspective, their incredible balance and offensively saw them through. For Florida, they were able to score a bunch, and this is why it was one of my favorite first-round series. There was a ton of scoring. Florida and maybe they have started to figure it out, they needed better goaltending. It reminded me a little bit of the Islanders and Penguins 2013, where the Islanders were the 8 seed, Penguins were the 1. So a little bit different from that perspective because Florida came in with a better regular season and more people believing them than the Islanders did in 2013. But that year, if the Islanders had gotten any goaltending whatsoever, they could have won that series. Florida, if they had gotten any goaltending, Florida went through 3 goalies in this series. And they finally found what seems to be the guy who's the guy they drafted, Spencer Knight, who's a 20-year-old top prospect. And they finally gave him a shot the last 2 games. He played really, really well. So that's good for the long term. In the short term, it hurts because Florida still hasn't won a series since 1996. They could be back next year. It'll be interesting to see when teams go back to regular divisions how they do.
Is that definitely going to happen?
I think most likely.
Okay. That'll be really interesting.
For Florida,
we'll be back with Carolina.
Yeah,
I'm not happy about that.
Oh God, yeah. But there was a downside to the series, which some people might see it as an upside. It was dirty. It was brutal. It was dirty. I enjoyed seeing the high flying offense, and I enjoy seeing the legal hits. But there was a lot, and the Panthers were guilty of a few. And I hate when my team does this. I've seen the Jets do this before. I've seen the Islanders maybe in the past do this,
Tom,
not as much anymore.
I've seen you do it before. All right, I didn't want to bring it up.
I
But...
didn't even say the thing. But like once you've lost a game, like just starting to hit people, like not hit, but like cheap shots.
Yeah.
Not a fan, and both teams did this, so I'm not. But the Panthers, it seemed like a little bit like after they were out of a game, they would do that. And Tampa Bay had a few really bad hits as well. Ryan McDonough was an absolute goon in this series. There were a lot of suspensions that should have been. There were a few that happened, but there's probably should have been even more.
Huh.
But yeah, the Lightning. Right. What I got out of the series is the Panthers goaltending. It needs to be the focus going forward. But hey, if Spencer Knight's the guy, the only problem is you're paying Sergei Bobrovsky to be a $10 million backup. Never overpay your goalies, ladies and gents.
But
except Sorokin, 10 years, $70 million.
10. I thought it was 10 years. 10. I thought it was 7. No, I thought it was 10 years. Wait, did you tweet that earlier?
No, I said that about Beauvillier just because he had a very cute hug of Palmieri.
Yeah. It was adorable. Okay,
is it time for the Leafs?
It's time for the Leafs and the Canadiens.
Can I introduce this one?
Of course.
Okay. So, all right. First of all, you might think that me smiling and like really wanting to get to this is glee. Actually, it isn't. So 16 out of 16 picked the Maple Leafs in ESPN's group.
And Tom, you picked the Maple Leafs as well.
I picked the Leafs in 5. So here's the thing. Yes, I did think the Canadian division buoyed Toronto's record. I didn't think Toronto was far and away like one of the best teams in the league. I did feel, and I still feel that if they had faced Boston, if they had faced Carolina, Tampa Bay, I think they would have been one of the worst teams in the second round. And they still could have won the second round because the Canadian division is not very convincing to me. Now, maybe I have a bad beat on some of these teams because Montreal proved that, hey, when they want it a lot, like when they get pushed up against a wall, wow, they did a very impressive job. They did a lot of what the Islanders do, and I can appreciate that. And yeah, Toronto was the better team, the more skilled team, but it felt like they got up 3-1 and they decided that they'd already proven that they were tougher than last year and that they were more mentally, a stronger team mentally. And, I actually feel bad. I feel really bad. I don't feel bad for the fans that burnt their stuff because they were the same ones that got on Islanders fans for burning Tavares jerseys. So, bit hypocritical there. But I do, for the fans that aren't lunatics, I feel really bad because this is not a team that had glaring issues and that you have been screaming from the rafters for a while. This is a team that you watched die in front of you with a really good lineup, with what I think was, their best defense they've had in the last 5 years, where they've all gone out in the first round. And their goaltending was pretty good. I know it was a bad goal to start Game 7, but, they shouldn't have gone to Game 7. And the Leafs didn't score until the final minute, down 3-0. So, good luck winning that game either way, based on how it was being played. Because Montreal in Game 7 looked like the team that was leading 3-1 at some point in the series. I feel bad for Steve Dangle that the Toronto Maple Leafs are literally putting him through like a quarter. Well, he's not my age, but like they're putting this guy through a crisis. This poor guy. Who like did a live stream. Can you imagine if we did a live stream of me watching the game? Oh
my God.
Like this guy, they put on a live stream, wasn't allowed to curse, watching a playoff hockey game. And he did it. And,
because he just cried. That's probably why.
Well, he basically very close at the end, but you got to give credit to, everyone's only talking about the Leafs and how their top line completely shut down the last 3 games. It took Montreal making adjustments from going, from after they went down 3-1, and the Leafs never readjusted. and that reflects really, poorly on Sheldon Keefe, their coach. It's a really bad look to just, for things to clearly be spiraling out of control and to continue to butt your head against the wall and be like, we don't need changes. We don't need changes. To me, it almost comes off like, you're like, like, what are the odds? Where it's kind of like and this is oversimplifying, but like kind of a lazy, like, we'll get it. We'll get one. The way we played in the first 4 games, we'll get another.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you gotta, you have to put your foot down in a series where you're up 3-1. When the Islanders were up 3-1 last year, they didn't put their foot down and they almost blew it against the Flyers.
Yeah.
So it's such a scary thing, but that probably shows a lack of killer instinct with the Leafs that the Islanders did have, comparing those 2 series. The Islanders in Game 7 decided no more, and they get a shutout, and they win 4-0. The Leafs come out, and they looked disinterested in a winner-take-all. How does that happen?
But then they all looked so sad. Understandably so, at the end of the game. Like that.
Well, they know the Toronto media.
Well, yeah, I guess I saw that clip of Austin Matthews just like, how do you explain this? Like there's nothing to say. I was like, damn, like this guy's depressed, understandably so. But like, that's when I turned from like, hey, the Canadians were able to win to like, oh wow, I feel bad.
Oh yeah, I have so much sympathy for. I get it. Like that first line, and Marner's getting a ridiculous amount of like social media hate and like.
Oof.
I don't think I've seen death threats yet, which is good, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, okay, you said that.
Well, I wouldn't rule it out because it's happened before, but
oof.
You're dealing
with, I guess, the craziest fan base, right?
Look, I have a lot of sympathy.
The biggest fan base.
Yeah. I have a lot of sympathy because the younger guys, they're still figuring it out. I know that they're not as young as they were and that they have to figure it out eventually. But, maybe they got shook by losing Tavares. Because that, not just from a leadership perspective, even though personally, I don't think Tavares, we don't know because like he's not very verbal, publicly. Behind the scenes, maybe he is a little bit more. It doesn't sound like he is, though. Maybe they should have given the captaincy to Morgan Riley, who has been there longer, and it felt like maybe it earned it more. I don't know, but they have a lot in the offseason that they're going to have to sort out. If I were the Leafs, I actually don't blow it up. I have the coach on a short leash going into next year because I think this reflects badly on him to not change tactics after things were clearly spiraling out of control. But for the players, they had a good mix of young guys and veterans. I already saw somebody say they need to trade for Tom Wilson. I would say no to that specifically, but
because Tom Wilson shouldn't be a hockey player anymore.
But do they need a tough guy? Yeah, they had some tough guys this year. They brought in Simmons, and he gave them some goal scoring too. I liked all their offseason moves, so it's kind of shocking.
Yeah.
It wasn't shocking that they didn't win the cup, but to me it was shocking just like they should have won. They should have won the Canadian division. It was all there for them.
I mean, how much do you contribute it to the Canadians outwilling the Leafs?
A lot, but that first of all, that reflects really strongly on the Canadians' desire and ability to get off the mat, because they could have just packed it in after 3-1. They didn't look like they deserved to be in the series at that point. And, for the Leafs, I was going to say it's a lesson, but how many lessons, the fans can't to defend the fans. How many times do they have to hear, oh, it's a lesson? It's 5 years in a row.
I do wonder, though, maybe it's like there might be different stakes playing in different teams, and like the Leafs just
there's a lot of pressure.
You were just saying
there's a ton of pressure in Toronto.
Paul moving to Boston and playing on the second line, like just that alone, him playing on the second line might actually be really good. Mm-hmm. So that he's like, okay, he's this big acquisition. He was like probably going from the worst team to a great team, and so now he's like, okay, I'm not necessarily right in the spotlight. I'm not replacing somebody on the perfection line, Yeah. So it's like that alone. So now imagine that, but like every player on the Leafs. And there's probably like the most blogs and the most YouTube channels about the Leafs or something. I don't know.
Oh, for sure.
But
for sure.
So
outside of us.
Yeah. Stay tuned we're starting a Leafs
Yeah,
YouTube channel.
but yeah,
But
my last
so I don't know.
note. Oh,
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. Go for it. No, that was it. I was just gonna say the
Oh,
pressure could be something I don't
it
understand.
definitely is. That
Yeah.
definitely plays in. It's an unbelievable amount of pressure. It's like being a Yankee.
Mm.
The last thing I'll say is Kyle Dubas, the GM, even though I think he had a good year in the guys he brought in, maybe probably overpaid a little bit at the deadline for a few guys, so now they're not in a great spot for the draft. But part of that, it's both ways. Like the players should have, like if they had made a few rounds in, that losing a first round pick wouldn't have been as bad. Now the first round pick is a little lower and it looks a little worse. And also the guy you traded for got hurt. So, but you can't predict those things.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's a wider philosophical issue for like paying everybody on your top line like $10 million plus. They have 4 players that make up half their cap. Clearly, they had some depth issues, and they tried to solve it with some grizzled vets, and so it worked better with some than others. Jason Spezza was good, but I don't know. Like Joe Thornton fell apart kind of halfway through the year, and Nick Foligno got hurt. So I don't know. I think they might have to trade one of the big 4 that they all signed huge contracts to. And of course, the name being kicked around, it's either Marner or Nylander. And Nylander was first of all, the only guy that scored in Game 7 for them, and has little by little, like, kind of won back trust amongst their fans. And so it feels like they're going to make a rash decision that they could come to regret. We'll see. But they're in this weird spot where it's like, yeah, like we should keep going for it because we have a huge core and also we've committed to it with money. But have we overcommitted, and can we now not get depth that we need? Can afford good goaltending, behind Jack Campbell? So I don't know. But if you're Toronto, if you're a fan, and you burn your jersey, I just want you to remember, if you had said anything about the Tavares stuff, just keep that in mind. I didn't burn my Tavares stuff. I have my Tavares jersey in the closet right now. In fact, I'm going to bring it out just to prove that I still have it, because I think people are going to be like, where's the proof?
All right, everybody. I'm going to take over the show for about 30 seconds.
There it is. It's not taped over. It's not nothing. It is exactly as it was. So just to prove that I didn't burn a jersey.
All right. Tom is the most hardcore Islanders fan. Whew. Facts. Okay. So that's a lot about Toronto.
Yes. Sorry, that was a big one.
No. I mean, I think it had to be said. All right. Mm-hmm. It had to be said. Somebody had to be brave enough to say it. So okay. So now let's move on to the other upset. The other big upset. Edmonton and the Winnipeg Jets. So
yeah,
the consensus pick from ESPN was 13-16 Edmonton. And I would have said Edmonton for sure. Let's see what your pick was, Tom. It was Edmonton.
Yes, I had Edmonton in 6. In this one, I think it came down to, first of all, just Winnipeg taking care of all their chances.
I watched a little bit of the series myself, yeah.
To steal a term that's said by soccer broadcasters, they were ruthless, Winnipeg. It felt like whenever they had a chance, they scored. And, Winnipeg's offense is incredible, and that is not unexpected that they would be so efficient. What was surprising was how well they were able to slow down Connor McDavid, because Winnipeg had this is part of the reason I picked Edmonton. I was like, oh, how's that blue line going to hold up against 2 of the best players in the world with McDavid and Draisaitl? And it turns out they focused a lot of attention on them, and they dared the Oilers to beat them through their depth. And the Oilers, once again, it was proven, not as severe as Toronto, but Connor McDavid. it's a little different because of course you're going to pay Connor McDavid whatever he wants, and Draisaitl won the scoring race last year, so it's not like he's a slouch either. But again, I think I saw that like teams that had $10 million players had lost like every playoff series. Like, spread that money through your lineup. If you obviously McDavid exception, and Draisaitl, but they have some really rough contracts. Mikko Koskinen, who didn't even appear in a game as a goalie, has $4.5 million as a backup. That's too much for a backup. They have the James Neal contract that they look like they're going to buy out. So there's basically some dead money there that makes it difficult to bring in extra players when it's like we don't have the money or the roster spots. So, but Winnipeg deserves a lot of credit. Their goaltending was a major boon or a major reason they won. And I don't think I weighed that in enough when I did my prediction. I was worried based on last year because the Oilers goaltending was just abysmal in the qualifying round series. But with how well Mike Smith played for parts of this year, I was like, all right, I don't think it's solved, but it's better and it's good enough to get them through. Clearly it wasn't.
Yeah.
And you know, that's on me. I was like, hey,
so you're the reason Edmonton lost. Got it. Okay.
This 40-year-old goalie should be able to stop this high-flying offense. No. So
yeah, I don't know. I watched a little bit of the series, and it was just I think it was a game 3 or something, or game 4. But yeah, it was. I mean, like, I don't know. That's what I say. I didn't watch enough of it really to comment, I guess.
And also, to be fair, 3 of the games went to OT, so yeah, it was a sweep. But like, Edmonton probably should have, like, because like if they should have, they probably would have done it. They didn't have the killer instinct. You know, there's going to be questions about, you know, McDavid's wingers in the offseason. Like, he doesn't have good enough wingers. Can we get him, please, God, something going so that he and Draisaitl don't have to account for 50% of the team scoring in every season?
That's insane.
Yeah.
Like, literally, those two players are half. That's crazy.
Yeah, and McDavid scored 100 points in 56 games.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, insane. Not quite Gretzky level, but pretty insane.
So let's give a ton of credit.
Round of applause.
Thank you to Winnipeg's defense and goaltending for stopping that. It's a very impressive feat. That it's almost funny because they're a victim of their own success, Winnipeg, because by sweeping them, I feel like it didn't get to be in the spotlight very long because, the first round series that get the most coverage are like the ones that last longer.
Yeah.
So for this to be a sweep, I feel like people forgot what a good job Winnipeg did to get it done. But
this is going to, I think, so the first game between Winnipeg and the Canadiens is actually tonight, the day we're filming this. So it's at 7:30 yesterday by the time this comes out. So hopefully you saw it. That's going to be really interesting because it's like, I personally have no idea what to expect, because it's like they both.
I don't think the fans of either teams know what to expect. Because like this could go completely either way. And I saw from a Winnipeg channel the other day, and I'm blanking on the name, but damn, I will shout it out if I remember it. But they were talking about.
We have a lot of influence.
Yeah. But they were talking about how they like. Yeah, is Montreal the preferred opponent rather than Toronto? Yeah, but does that mean they're going to win? No, because Montreal has both of these teams have proven at different points in the season that when their backs are against the wall, they can find some success. And
see, but that might be like a little bit less of the underdog story, because it's just like it's going to be a hard battle and whatever, but like it's not like you're not mounting up for like the biggest boss fight, you know what I mean, that you can imagine. Where it's, it's like the narrative you can build around it is not as like strong, I suppose.
But I at the risk of being wrong again, I think Montreal is going to win. I don't know. It's completely possible that they are gassed and Winnipeg just like skates right by them.
That'd be interesting.
We'll,
Yeah.
we'll see. It'll be that game one will tell us a lot probably, but much like the Islanders, and I always relate it back to the Islanders because where Toronto media always takes a story and goes, but what about the Leafs? I take a story and I go, but what about the Islanders? Because nobody else does that. So why don't we? But
Sure.
relating this to the Islanders last year when they failed to close out Philly in a timely fashion and let it go to 7, it cost them game 1 of the Tampa series.
100%.
It cost them a lot. I'm not saying they don't that they could have won otherwise, but they probably don't lose 8-2. So look out. Game 1, Winnipeg might have a shot at running over Montreal, but that doesn't mean it'll be
How much time is between
not a lot, just a couple days, I think.
Yeah, so hopefully.
And in the Montreal series, they played a back-to-back. So that's tough. That's really tough. And they're getting going right on another series. So I do think that Winnipeg in game 1 could maybe have a nice decisive win. Doesn't mean the series will be that easy, though.
I mean, yeah, if anybody should know, that doesn't mean anything. It's Montreal. It's the Canadiens, you know? So, okay. All right. So, last division, the West. We'll start with ESPN's pick of Colorado and St. Louis. So, they picked Avalanche. 15 out of 16 of the reporters picked Avalanche. Seems reasonable.
To the one guy that picked the Blues, give your head a shake. Like, take a walk, give your head a shake, retire.
Hey, man.
No, but do give your head a shake and take a walk. It's good for you. But I don't know.
He thought that
how
they were going to come back. I don't know.
How could you possibly pick the Blues in this series? How? Colorado, I understand that, like, you know, maybe if you're just like, oh, Colorado chokes a lot, so I'll pick against them. I don't know how, you know, they had this year, every year, like with Colorado, it's been like, but is their goaltending good enough? Grubauer was very good. But, you know, are they healthy? They are. How's their defense? It's pretty good. This Devon Taves guy, never heard of him. He's pretty good. So top to bottom, they're the best team in the league. And they are the favorites for the Cup. Colorado, clearly, I picked Vegas to beat Colorado. Colorado beat Vegas 7-1 in game 1 of their series, so I'm already looking pretty good. But whoever wins the series, I think is the favorite for the Cup. The second round series between the two. For this first round series, that's how like forgettable the series was, is I immediately skipped forward to Colorado in the second round. There are some people picked a sweep, so good for them. I picked my version of a sweep. I picked Colorado in 5. I was like, St. Louis gets one. They get a lucky one. No, Colorado was ruthless. St. Louis is a team that I think needs to check its ego a little bit. Jordan Binnington tried to fight Philip Grubauer because they were getting crushed and he was embarrassed. That's a bad look, bud. Also, maybe stay in your net because he tried to come out and play a puck and got a puck scored on him. Stay in your net.
That's like the most embarrassing. That's almost as embarrassing as Jari passing the puck to Bailey and then Bailey scoring on him.
Yeah, and to a lesser extent on the attitude thing, Ryan O'Reilly said, "Yeah, we're gonna beat them." Like, and of course, you're never gonna say
can't show weakness.
We're gonna lose to them. You're never gonna say, but he chose to, do a borderline guarantee, and I probably wouldn't have done that. Maybe you gave some more bulletin board material to already the most talented team in the league. A team that has 3 defensemen that are unbelievable offensive threats. Maybe don't piss them off extra. They have Cale Makar, they have Devon Taves, and they have Samuel Girard. They're scary. They're real scary, Colorado. There's not much more that I even can say about the series other than Colorado was ruthless, and the Blues need to kind of reevaluate Probably their blue line a little bit. After losing Pietrangelo, who hasn't been incredible in Vegas, they were a little bit shakier defensively, and I think part of that is Jordan Binnington not being great. Probably shouldn't have paid Jordan Binnington as much as they did, only to watch him in 2 straight playoff series just look real bad last year and this year. Yeah, so the Blues, kind of like the Caps, they win a cup and they decide no more. We're good.
Yeah, I don't know if it's. I'd be surprised if it was that bad, but I don't know. I've obviously watched a lot more of the Caps because they're in our division. But
sure.
All right, and then finally we have Vegas and Minnesota. Let's see what the ESPN people said. They said 15-16 Vegas. I think that was a safe bet.
Let's give some credit, first of all, to the guy that picked Wild in 7. Because look, I told Sean Allen. So I told the last guy to give his head a shake. This guy, good on him, because I see a lot of Vegas in 6. I see a few 5s. I had Vegas in 7. I think this is the only series where I got it right to the game.
Yeah.
I did a separate bracket that's much better than the one I did for the channel for Isles guys. And I'm very much regretting that I didn't submit that because I had Colorado winning the cup. And in the first round, I went 6 of 8 instead of 5 of 8. I went 5 of 8 in our bracket. In the other bracket, I decided to pick the Islanders. So that was the difference. Anywho, probably should have done that for my YouTube channel based on the Islanders. But, I'm trying to stay fair and balanced, trademark.
Mm-hmm.
But this series was a lot of fun. Early on, it looked like Vegas was maybe just overpowering them. And then Minnesota showed so much fight. Cam Talbot, who I clowned on. I think at the beginning of the year, I was like, really? That's going to be your starting goalie this year? I don't know about that. He was really good. Now, he was also really good a few years ago in Edmonton. And then he got so overworked that he just fell apart overnight.
That's like such a scary thing that I think we've seen happen to a few goalies.
Yeah, at least that's the importance of the tandem nowadays. Yeah, I think it's huge. And guess what? This year, there were points that he had to start probably too many games in a row, but they had Capo Kakinen, who's a young goalie who started this year, I think is their number 3, turned into their number 2, turned into their 1 for a little bit. He was so good. But Talbot sees the net back, played really well in the playoffs. This is another team kind of like Nashville, but not to the same extent. Nashville was playing with house money. Minnesota was playing with a little bit. They were playing with, less of the pressure on them because so many people had picked Vegas, as you could tell by the 15 out of 16 ESPN writers. But, the Wild throughout the regular season were an excellent team. Fair to say, if we're going to clown on the North, we should clown on the West to an extent. These teams did get to annihilate all of the California teams. And the mediocre Coyotes, unfortunately, who I picked to make the playoffs. So, it'll be interesting to see next year for Minnesota. If I don't think they're going to fall off, but are they really good? Are they inching towards the top tier of teams, or are they, a good team that's record got buoyed by playing a lot of bad teams? For all the crap that the North got, I think the West was comparable in that you had 3 teams that were just bad, and then you had a 4th that was extremely mediocre. So it was very easy to make the playoffs, as evidenced by the Blues getting in and then immediately getting run over. There was a big gulf between the top 3 teams and then everyone else. So maybe their records got buoyed a little bit, but from what I saw from the Wild this year, they're going to be a lot of fun going forward. They're scoring. They didn't have any genuine centers. And that's one of the reasons I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs. They proved me wrong. I love when a team proves me wrong. It just makes it more fun. And it makes me have to reevaluate my life decisions. But this series came down to the wire. Vegas was able to pull it out. I know the referees in the series, there was a lot of talk about them. Every series, the refereeing was terrible. I just want to put that out there. It wasn't very fun to watch the referees make their marks on games. And as Urinating Tree said, sometimes they try so hard to stay out of the game that they affect the game even more. Because, like, all of a sudden the players are like, oh, okay, I could just haul this guy down.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do it, and there's no call, and they're like, great, can't wait. And then somebody else sees that and goes, all right, then I guess I'll do it. And then they call it the second time. So the consistency is bad, and I know in this series a lot of Minnesota fans were talking about that, which goes to, and this isn't targeting Minnesota fans, this is targeting every fan base in the league. Every time you lose a series, there's a hierarchy of people to blame. Number one, the referees. Number two, your own goalie. And this is used even when your goalie plays incredible because people are stupid. And three, although if you're a Pittsburgh fan, I'll grant you, partial credit if you're blaming your goalie, because
half point.
Yeah. But third is God.
Wow. Damn. No
well,
GM, no coach.
There's nobody else. There's nobody else to blame.
Skip the GM and coach. Go right to God. God willed it.
God created the GM and coach.
I see, but not the refs. Definitely not the refs.
Unless you don't believe that. In which
Satan
case,
created the refs. But so.
Wow, I didn't expect this to get so theological, but I also brought it on myself. Anyway, the Vegas series I probably saw the least of, to be open. The games that I saw Minnesota win, they were really impressive in how they were able to snuff out the Vegas offense, but Vegas was also missing one of their top scorers in Max Pacioretty. So I'm sure that played in a little bit. Mm-hmm. And for Vegas, they have two great goalies. We'll see how that goes against Colorado. It hasn't started off well, but this will be
shnikes.
What's up?
Colorado beat Vegas 7-1. I totally missed. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's how good Colorado is.
And then they're playing tonight, the recording at 10, so that should be interesting. Whew.
Yeah. So the final numbers for my first round, I went 5 of 8. I got 2 divisions correct fully. Carolina and Tampa, I got Colorado and Vegas. In the East, I got Boston. I picked against my own Islanders. And I got everything in the North wrong. So all in all, pretty in line with my preseason predictions, which means mediocre. Above average.
Okay. Anyway, I'm gonna put a little mark here. So you got, what's a good color? We'll do green. So sure. You got Pittsburgh wrong. You got Boston right. Mm-hmm. Got Colorado right. Got Tampa Bay right. I said Colorado, I meant Carolina, sorry. You did get Colorado right, though. You got Vegas right, and then you got Toronto and Edmonton wrong. But everybody got Toronto and Edmonton wrong. So that doesn't count. That's a fluke, all right? Those are basically right. So you got 7 out of 8.
I went 5 of 6, and since I'm an Islander fan, I went 6 to 6.
Exactly. Or 5 out of 5, really. So, yeah. And then, so the only thing, I think the last thing we need to discuss is why the Islanders are going to win the Cup.
Sure. I sacrificed. I signed a contract.
A blood magic thing, and
yeah. That's why.
Okay. Great.
And if you had to ask me right now, who's going to win each second round series, I would say Boston. Well, okay. I'll tell you who I picked originally because.
Okay, wait. Let me write these in.
Okay. Well, so. I don't even know if you have to because I made my second through fourth round picks in the video.
Yeah, I know. So I'm writing them in. All right.
If you watched my second to fourth round video, I picked Vegas to win the West. I picked Boston in the East. I picked Carolina in the Central, and I picked Toronto in the North. And I'll tell you which ones I'm confident about. None. Well, obviously Toronto are done, so that's just dead. Right. Colorado just annihilated Vegas. And even though I don't think that's going to be the norm for this series, I do think that Colorado is looking just like on the warpath. But in the Boston Islanders series, I guess that would be the one I'm most confident about because even though the Islanders won the last game, to me, Boston is a team that's playing really well, even in their loss. And I still don't know if the Islanders can match their offense. We'll see. The middle six for the Islanders is scoring. The top line showed signs of life. The fourth line won the game. So
Wait, who do you think is going to win between Carolina and Tampa Bay?
I picked Carolina.
All right.
Tampa Bay's already up 2-0. So I had a good first round, and I am stepping away from the second round, which is already not looking good for my predictions.
So this is what I have. So based on obviously the new, the fact that you got the one division in the East, whatever. Yeah. Isles beat Pittsburgh and Edmonton and Toronto are knocked out. So I have Colorado winning. These are your updated predictions, but you're cheating because quizzes aren't official, I suppose, right?
Yeah, it's not even prediction. It's just this is how I feel the series are going so far.
Yeah. Okay, better way to put it. So you think Colorado's going to beat Vegas, Boston's going to beat the Isles, which is probably not going to happen.
Could go either way. That's the one series that's probably still the most.
Well, you said that was the one you felt the most confident about, unless I misunderstood.
Oh no, you're right, but it is 1-1, and the Islanders do,
and they're coming home, baby.
Yeah,
we're coming to the Collie.
I think the big thing is the Islanders consistently. I feel like they're never going to play a series where they're considered the favorites going in.
Yeah.
Just because a lot of predictions, and I'm guilty of this, are based off of roster on paper. And that's something maybe going forward I need to improve on. Considering in the North, Toronto, I thought they were different this year. Mm-hmm. Maybe teams, it takes longer to change maybe. Or maybe just Toronto sucks. But
you know what? Can we even change as people?
Oh, God. But Toronto and Edmonton, they showed me last year why I shouldn't have picked them this year, and I didn't listen. But, this is something you play with. This is the fun part of predictions, is you play with them every year. You try to gauge how much better are they than when I picked against them last year. We had somebody comment on one of the videos, Edmonton's already out. Why am I watching this? Welcome to predictions. They're done before the games are played. That's the fun part, is watching other people's opinions and how they do.
So, all right. With that, I think that's it, right? Anything else you want to add? I'm pretty sure we covered a lot. Well, a final teaser. Who do you think it's going to be in the finals in the Stanley Cup?
So based on right now, I think whoever wins the North is locked in to play whoever wins Colorado Vegas. Whoever wins Colorado Vegas is going to the Cup. Mm-hmm. I don't think either team in the North is good enough to beat Colorado.
Okay.
So I'm going to say Colorado out of that side of the bracket. And the other side, Tampa Bay is looking like a wagon again. So I'm going to say Tampa Bay gets to the third round, where they meet Boston. From there, it could go either way, but I am right now saying Colorado Tampa looks like the final.
Because I remember you saying, I don't remember if this was on camera, but you were saying that whoever wins the East is probably going to the finals because...
Well, I said they're all Cup contenders.
I don't know.
I did. But also, because every round, because of after the third round, everything is reseeded, it was harder because it wasn't a bracket style.
Yeah.
And now that we know that the East can't play the North, the East is going to have a tough time with Tampa or Carolina. That series will be tough. Whoever gets to the third round from either of those. But looking forward to it. That should be a great series. Whether it's Islanders Carolina, Islanders Tampa, Boston Carolina, Boston Tampa. These teams have all played each other in the playoffs fairly recently.
I just hope that the Islanders. I don't want to see another Islanders Tampa. playoff. I'd rather see that than a Boston Tampa, but
well, let's put it this way. If the Islanders win this series, they're going to have to play one of the two teams that knocked them out of the last two playoffs.
Yeah, I guess since I didn't see Carolina knock them out, I'd rather watch that than because I saw Tampa Bay.
And having watched both, I would, I think I would still rather play Carolina because Tampa Bay looks so good.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it's easy to say that when a team's down 2-0 and be like, because it's hard to come back from 2-0. So you're of course like, oh yeah, I'd rather play the team that's down 2-0 than the team that's up 2-0. Like, of course. But Tampa Bay, if they played the Islanders, I would think it would be a similar series to last year. Where Tampa wins in like probably 6.
Yeah.
Again.
I mean, we do have last year with Greiss and Varlamov. We were really relying a lot more.
Varlami.
It's pronounced Varlami.
It's pronounced Varlami.
So we do have a more consistent goalie tandem. I don't know if that'll help us, but it might.
I don't know. I would say it's similar to last year.
Well, because Greiss had its up and downs, but I guess near the end of the season he was or in the postseason he was fine. So that probably isn't really going to affect it. Yeah,
and there's so like how much changes from series to series.
Right.
You had in the first round, you had Vasilevsky look bad. And in the second round, he looks God again. Mm-hmm. So series to series, things change so much. It is why this beautiful, stupid sport is so hard to predict round to round. A team could sweep a team and then get swept. I've seen it with my own eyes. So
okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, very much for listening, for watching. Please let us know how you feel about hockey in general in the comments and join the conversation. All right. Goodbye.
Bye.